Hi there, welcome along to Outdoor Gear Chat. My name's Wayne. I'm here as always with Kathy, and we are on episode 94. So we're doing iconic climbs and Cenotaph Corner. Hi, Kathy. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, Wayne. Yeah, iconic climbs. This is the first iconic climb podcast that we've done, but what a way to kick off because we are starting with arguably one of the classics in the UK, Cenotaph Corner, an incredible route in the Llanberis Pass that just kind of stands sentinel as you drive down from the top. You can't miss it. It's an absolute unique formation, and the climb goes right up the corner as if of a book. It's quite incredible. Now, we're going to give a bit more history about the climb as we go through, but we've got a really important person joining us today because we are joined by climber, artist, and guidebook illustrator Phil Gibson. Now, Phil has well, he's an incredible artist. He's added over 250 drawings across 22 climbing guidebooks during his career, and he's also created a really unique 90-degree artwork of Cenotaph Corner. Now, this was a climb first ascended by Joe Brown, and it's a beautiful piece of art we've got actually on display permanently now in our Llanberis shop. Phil made it to celebrate his own 50th anniversary of climbing the route. So we're just going to crack on and talk about it. So welcome to the podcast, Phil. It's great to have you with us.
Yeah, morning, Kathy. It's great to be here. Great to be talking about nostalgic times.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you first climbed Cenotaph Corner in 1975. Can you talk us through that climb and just give us an idea of the kind of gear that you were placing at that time? And did you get to clip the peg, one of the pegs originally left by Joe on his ascent?
Well, I can't remember too much about the ascent, but because it was 50 years ago last year. But I do remember clipping the pegs at the top, and they must have been Joe's. They must have been Joe's pegs because this was in 1975, and I wouldn't have thought they would have aged too much by that time, you know. But they
Yeah.
were in place. They were there in place. And actually, it was probably one of my first, as they say, extreme climbs. But it wasn't graded extreme then. It was graded HVS, and we didn't have the gear, of course, that we had today. And me and my brother, and I must mention my brother because my brother was only 15 at the time. So, and I was 20. So it was quite a thing for him. And Gary, as you know, went on to do a lot more new pioneering new routes and things. Everybody knows Gary.
Well, we
Uh,
just got to give Gary a quick shout out because I don't think there's many other people probably around the world that have actually put up so many new routes. I think it's around 5,000, isn't it?
Wow.
If you pick up a guidebook, his name's in there somewhere.
in there. And I mean, I didn't do too many first ascents with him. I followed him up on most of the first ascents, but because I used to get a bit fed up of sitting around waiting for him to clean them and all the rest of it. So I wanted to just go climbing. So, so that was really why we didn't drift apart, but we sort of went off and did our own thing, you know.
Yeah.
And but coming back to the climb, I didn't find it technically too difficult. We were climbing mainly on gritstone, which was quite tough, really. And we were actually operating in a bit of a vacuum because we didn't really know many of the leading climbers, and we were down in Wales finding our way. There wasn't all the information that you can get these days with the media and all that, so we were operating really from an old guidebook. And with the old guidebook I got here, which we used, and I'll read you the description. And it was given HVS plus in the old Ron James guide, which he brought out. Everybody know Ron James, and he brought out a compendium of all the best routes, some of the best routes to do well. And he says this pitch is one of the best in Britain, giving superb climbing and a perfect line up the centre of this fine cliff, a must for all aspiring hard men. Its ascent in good style makes an introduction to modern hard climbing. Two pitons are usually in place, more definitely are not needed, whilst a good leader will try to use less. Protection is good throughout, although a little cunning is needed to find it all. Well, that's right. I mean, I think even with today's modern gear, you can get gearing all over the place. I mean, there's a big crack, there's a pudding stone in the middle, there's the peg at the top. So I think it's just basically of working your way up steadily and just having good stamina. I mean, we were using things like Moax and old drilled out nuts, and that's one of the old machine nuts that we used to use. And we drill out the thread, and
oh, fantastic! So, for the
yeah,
benefit of people listening to the podcast, Phil has just held up what is literally an old rusty bolt. It's a machine bolt, and it's yeah. I mean, it's exactly what I would see on my dad's workshop floor.
yeah.
And so, you used to thread those with rope, with tape?
With rope, just with rope or tape. But the thing was to file out the thread
Yeah.
inside, so it wouldn't
Yes.
cut through the tape or the rope. Now, we didn't use many of those. They were just sort of going out of vogue, really. But that was sort of more the thing that they did in the 60s. But prior to that, I think Joe was renowned for using pebbles when
Yes,
he
he
climbed.
was.
I believe he used to keep pebbles in his hat and
Yeah.
would pop them into tracks and thread them. That must have been a laborious thing to do. I can't believe how he would do it.
Well, he was definitely strong. I mean, actually, we should probably say that when Joe put up the first ascent with Doug Belshaw, it was 1952. He does sort of describe, if anybody has an opportunity to read his description in his biography, The Hard Years, it's a fantastic description. And he did sort of tear his trousers from knee to ankle near the beginning of the route. And carried on up. But actually, the day that he climbed it, because one of the things about Cenotaph Corner is you look up to it on a standard Welsh wet day, there are streaks of black just oozing down the face, and so it is often quite wet. It was very wet when he was climbing it, so he was climbing with his socks over his boots on his first ascent with Doug. But that actually wasn't the first time he climbed the route. He'd gone up a couple of years before with a climbing partner, Wilf White. It was in the winter. He'd got 5 assorted pegs, snap links, and slings. And the slings he describes were there for either putting over rock spikes or threading round behind pebbles. And as he got up, he got about 30 foot from the top, which I think is the niche, isn't it? And that's the crux.
The niche is a little bit close to the top. It's probably about 10 feet from the top.
10 feet from the top.
To get a rest in the niche, most climbers who've done it or about it know about it, and you can almost put your backside on one side of the niche and put your foot across. You can have a really good rest there before the final move is the crux.
Right, perfect. So he got to that point, and actually, I should probably also describe you're bridging up or you're lay backing up, because it is a corner. So he got up to the niche. Obviously, he could see the crux from there, and could see the difficulties increasing. So he'd actually just turned around to talk to Will, forgot he'd got his peg hammer in his mouth, and the peg hammer slipped out. And because the corner's perfectly vertical, it didn't even glance off of the wall. It just fell straight down and just knocked his second out, basically. So he looked down and his second's like crumpled on the floor, and he's sort of just below the crux of this route on a first ascent. And so he managed to sort of use one of the snap links as a pulley and get down quickly. And by that time, Wilf had kind of shaken himself, and it was a glancing blow, thank goodness.
Well, recovered consciousness, basically.
Yeah, well, they mopped up the blood.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
Wilf was like, well, come on then, get back up and let's get this done.
I love it. Why have you come down for? Yeah.
Right at the top where he's almost done it, you know.
Yeah, brilliant.
So I think they did give it another go, but then decided to sack it off for the day. But that story, I mean, it's like, they don't make them like that these days, kind of sketch.
No, but I mean, I'm just showing the machine nuts. We just had a few of them, but we were using mainly wedges like that, which I've only got those, you can see, but there was a classic nut that people made. It was called a Moac. I don't know if you've heard of Moac. And it was brought out in 1960s by a blacksmith from Sheffield named John Brailsford, and he created this Moac. And I looked it up yesterday. I didn't realise it was actually named after, called mountain. It was shortened version of mountain activities, but everybody had these Moacs, and they're a brilliant nut. They're just basically a tapered wedge-shaped alloy. That's very similar to what it was. I haven't got one now, but it was just a very simple, adaptable alloy lightweight nut, which would virtually go into any crack or corner, which obviously the corner is made up of a crack which goes from, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches in the middle down to 2 inches, 1 inch. So you can get these sort of nuts in virtually, you can lace the whole thing up if you've got enough of them. But I would say modern day's equipment today, even with modern day's equipment, I think using friends and cams obviously are a lot more adaptable, and you wouldn't need to carry as many of them really. But we climb with a number of these Moax and alloy clog wedges. You've heard of the clog?
Yeah,
we had clogs which were very similar to that. That's an eccentric nut. Picture there, which were later developed by an American Chouinards, developed the eccentrics, I think that's right. But Clog Factory in Wales produced the clog nut, which was named obviously after Cloggy or other cliffs in the pass. So those were universal, and those were alloy as well. So all that kit was about. But of course, it's all developed now into cams and all fancy types of nuts like that, which have got shapes, and they're more adaptable today. They're multi-purpose really.
Yeah, we've got a whole wall of them
Yeah.
in our shop. So you can choose from offsets, there's rocks, there's walnuts, there's half shapes, there's all manner of different ones. And of course, I think you get your favourites, when you're climbing, and you'll have your go-to ones. But what was really interesting, and we'll have a link in the show notes here to our blog page, is where we've got an image of you climbing, Phil, taken by your brother on your first ascent. Now you are wearing a Joe Brown helmet on that ascent as well, which is fantastic to see. No more caps with pebbles in by the 70s. But it's really noticeable how on your harness, which I think looking at it is a Willands harness, would it have been? Or
it was a Willands harness. That was standard kit for that time, really, in the 70s. Obviously, brought out by Don Willands, who was the climbing partner to Joe. He developed, but it was a good harness. But if you fell in it, it wasn't particularly comfortable.
Not for guys, no.
So that was the big thing about the Willands harness. It wasn't, if you took a big whipping fall, it wasn't the thing to be doing really. I would have thought that through a bit more.
You never think it through until you fall, though. That's my limited experience, Phil. Is exactly that. It's only.
So and actually going back to the clog as well. Clog was Mo Anton's company, based in Paris. Oh wait, no, I'm getting mixed up. Clog was Denny Morehouse and Shirley Smith's business. Yeah, Denny Morehouse of DMM fame.
Oh wow.
They started Clog in the old Delhi Holland cinema back in 1966, which of course is the same year Joe Brown shops opened. But no, Mo Antoine, he was Snowden Mouldings. Mo worked with Joe on making the helmets and those initial Joe Brown helmets that became iconic throughout the sort of English-speaking climbing world. And we've got a shop window in at the moment, because the original Joe Brown helmets were 630 grams, a weighed one, and that was before you put your flat battery for your Pepsil head torch in between the cradle and the shell, to add a whole load of extra weight and remove all safety from the helmet. But versus we've got a new Blaze helmet by Blue Ice, which is a French company, and that's 445 grams. It's such a huge difference, sort of almost half that weight. So you haven't got that massive weight on your neck, when you're looking up, whether you're belaying or whether you're climbing up. You definitely have to have stronger neck muscles back in the day as well.
Yeah, I always remember these helmets because they were quite big. I got quite a big one, and my brother had got more of a shaped one, and I used to pinch it off him sometimes. It was much more comfortable. But they got like a nylon strap, and they were almost like a motorcycle helmet. They were quite heavy, and when you moved your head or tilted your head, they'd sort of wobble, and you could really feel. It wasn't great, but hey, that was the gear. That was the gear at the time.
But they had a special smell as well because they're fiberglass. They
Yeah,
had it was very, very, very evocative. If I'm going when I was just building the shop window, we've got one of every colour on display,
yeah.
and I was taken back with the smell to my early days of centre climbing at that point when there was the centre helmet. But so I guess yeah, you've got the helmet designed by Joe, the gear was part of, Joe and Mo Antoine. There was a link there. The route was obviously Joe's first descent. It's with the harness as well that Don Willens, Joe's climbing partner, created, and Joe did actually make his own harnesses as well for a time out of the shop. So there's a huge amount of link with the sort of original first ascensionist there.
I was going to say, Kathy, about the ascent when Joe did it, and it was streaming with water and all the rest of it. When me and my brother did it, we did it in sort of early August. So we picked a day when it was really dry. So, but I think Joe was I think he was used to climbing routes in the wet anyway. I mean, he was well known for doing routes on cloggy in the rain, or they were just, that was what they did. They didn't pick and choose. They just went and did it. And they, as you say, I forgot about the business about him pulling his socks over his boots to give more grip.
Yeah.
I guess, Kathy, I was just wondering if you were going with how did your gear change from your first ascent to the 2025 ascent? Was that where your line of thinking was
It
going
was,
there?
thank
Was
you.
that, yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's all right, yeah. And
yeah.
I guess how the kit differed, but by the sounds of it, a lot of it was similar kit to you might have used back in the 70s. But was there any massive difference to the stuff you've used more recently doing the climb, Phil?
Yeah, well, I did do the climb again in 1994, but
Right.
with another mate, and we did it, and we were climbing a lot, but we were climbing quite hard then, and I remember doing it then with modern gear like cams, and obviously not as well developed as they are now, but I had friends and that, but I think we just did it as part of a circuit of routes on the Cromlech. There were other routes like Left Wall and other, which is well known. We were doing other routes on that day, but I remember going back in '94 and doing it again, and just for sentimental reasons, really, and flowed quite nicely up it. It was just a beautiful route to do. It's just a beautiful line. It's a perfect corner, as Kathy said. And it grabs you as soon as you drive down the pass.
Yeah, and it is, you've got, as you said, you've got left wall, you've got right wall, there's also cemetery gates. I mean, there's a wealth of routes on that crag.
Yeah,
And if
yeah,
you're not kind of climbing up in the higher lofty grade, you can also get that feeling of exposure by climbing spiral stairs just around the corner, which is a
yeah.
multi-pitch V-diff. If you really want to, you can descend by abseiling down Cenotaph corner, which
Wow.
We abseiled down the corner
mm,
to get off the sort of route quickly and get onto something else. I think that's what most people do. They ab
yeah.
down the corner if it's not too busy, or you walk around and come down by Flying Buttress on the right. Which actually, I just mentioned, Flying Buttress was the very first climb I did.
Oh, was it really?
The very first climb, it was a V-diff, and I can always remember it. It's a classic start, as is Spiral Stairs.
Yeah.
And I think Spiral Stairs as a starter route is quite a route to do, because it's you're sitting underneath the corner before you even start, and it wanders off to the left. So I think that in itself makes the place quite intimidating.
It does, yeah. And actually, the top pitch of Spiral Stairs, yeah, you definitely get the exposure feel on that one.
Very good value for money, that one.
Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, so going back to the gear again, the picture of you climbing that Gary took in 1975, it's really noticeable how little gear you're carrying on your harness
Yeah.
as a rack. But I've also linked to the excellent video that the team at UK Climbing have made of climbing the route as well in real time, and it's very noticeable how much gear they are taking up with them. And they do explain as you go, because it is a beautiful corner, you've got so many gear options as you go. So that's a really nice video just to watch, either to revisit your own climb and rekindle memories, or to
I did watch it a couple of years ago. I think it's Rob Greenwood climbing it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Quite a good video to watch. But the
Yeah.
other thing to mention about when we climbed it was we were carried quite a few tape slings, which you can sort of, there's the famous pudding stone, as it's called, halfway up, and you can just wrap your slings around that. So there's a few other options like that, as well as just putting standard wedges and nuts in the crack. And then you've got the pegs at the top. And I think there were possibly, as Ron James described it, is probably 2 pegs somewhere on the route, on the top upper section near the niche.
Sorry, I was going to say, I just wanted to ask that, we're talking about the difference in gear, almost gear through the ages, but and I'm fascinated by this, your dissertation on the design of climbing gear, Phil. What have you seen as far as the evolvement of climbing gear, the evolution? Thank you. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. When was it happening at a lot quicker rate when you first started climbing?
I did really. Basically, I was at college doing my art degree, and we had to write a dissertation over the 3 years, and I decided to write it on, because I was doing a art design course. I decided to write it on climbing equipment because it was just another excuse to go climbing, really. Which was what, and I just wrote that, and it was very good because I put feelers out, and I picked out so many routes to sort of combine with the climbing equipment we were using, and I also got in touch with the clog factory, Denny Morehouse.
Yes.
And I think which I think became the name DMM, which it is now. Denny was a great guy. I don't remember Mo Antoine, but I know he was involved with Joe. But Denny Morehouse invited me over, and we came over for the day with my brother, and he gave us a tour of the factory, and he showed us how it all made, the clog nuts and everything else. And the other guy I wanted to mention was a guy named Tony Howard of Troll, and you must have heard of those. And he didn't invite me to the factory, but he was very helpful in helping me I did a questionnaire, which I put into my thesis, and he was very helpful in explaining to me various things about the design. So that all helped, really.
And I think, was you able to do, I mean, I'm assuming because it was art design, there must have been some opportunities to do imagery of the gear and like engineering drawings of the gear as well. Was that kind of thing included?
Illustrations of the gear and how it was used on the routes, particularly Cenotaph corner, things like that. And I also wanted to illustrate the crags as well, and to bring the corner artwork that I've done into the conversation. I drew the right wall and the left wall, and in fine detail at that time. And then somebody suggested to me, why don't you put them together to make somebody. So the germ of the idea was from that, really. So I'd already got the illustrations really in place for the corner artwork. So that was part of my thesis, and the drawings were done to illustrate where the routes would go.
Wow.
That's
and then all these
brilliant.
years later, you've actually now, I mean, I know it wasn't an easy job creating a 90-degree artwork. There's a reason that you don't see them around that often.
I think it was somebody at the outside shop. I think it was James Turnbull at the outside shop. I was over there one day showing the artwork, and he just put them on the desk and stood them up, and he says, "Look at this." I said, "What a great idea!" And that was it. That's what we given. But I thought, no, how am I going to make this work? Because it's not a standard sort of picture framed item.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's blown me away. I know I often get blown away by these, Phil, but it's amazing to hear that creativity that's gone into that, and I guess the lead into it as well, isn't it? And just back to the kit thing as well, because I am dead interested in the evolution. Thank you very much of kit and how it's all come about. And that do you think that modern day kit has made the route easier, the Cenotaph?
That's a very good question. I thought about that. That's a good question. I don't think really the route is any easier, because you've still got to climb it. And it's not an easy route in terms of technically it's not too difficult. But if as the Ron James guidebook says, if you're cunning, you can actually rest here and there. And if you know your technique and you know your ability, you can rest all over the place, really. And with the modern gear, of course, it's a lot more, what the word is for it, adaptable and serviceable, because if you've got a cam or which you can open and close to a particular width. Of course, you've got the versatility then of applying that cam to any particular spot on the route, whereas we had to use a nut or a shape nut which had certain limitations. If you can get that sort of thinking, if you see that thinking, it's the gear. But there again, people carry loads of these friends. We want to feel secure with more and more gear.
Yeah, the same kind of thing, isn't it? The modern gear has kind of made the route, in theory, more safe as long as you place the gear correctly. You can lace a route with gear, but if you haven't placed it correctly, then it can all rip, and the outcome can be really not what you intended.
I think from my point of view, Kathy, I think I'm not climbing so much as late, but when I was climbing much better on traditional routes, as they call them today, I was always still very suspect about friends. I was still very much wanted to place a nut or something that I could actually physically see, which is going to lock into the crack. Whereas a camming device like friends were brought out, as you know, by Mark Vallance and I can't think of the famous American climber,
Ray Jardine.
Ray Jardine, that's right. And I remember I knew, bless him, Mark Vallance. I knew him in his factory in the Peak District, but they developed those devices. But I was still very suspect about them. They were still new, and I think placing them, you had to get them right. You could overcam them, or you could, all about this. The cams have got to sit just right in the crack. If you don't get it right, they will fly out.
They'll fly out or they'll walk as well.
Yes, that's right.
Just the movement of your rope. So you do need to be very careful about how you place them. And that's just a case of experience, isn't it, at the end of the day? I went on I think it was Women's Trad Climbing Fest actually a number of years ago, and we just had a whole pile of cams, and we're in one of the bays at Stanage, and we just all went and just spent, I think it was probably best part of an hour placing and then testing each other's placements. And that was actually a really nice confidence building thing to do, because we weren't on any routes. We were just standing and placing. And some of the placements was unreal. You could get a good few of us on a sling and they weren't shifting. When they're in, they're in. But it is just very, very definitely experience.
Well, just in mind there, you were doing them on Stanage on gritstone, weren't you?
Yeah.
Which is a rock, which is almost, it's got more grip. But when you start putting them in smoother cracks, I think that the art of it then becomes, as you said, you've got to get the position just right, because they will fly out more easily, I think, on limestone or smooth volcanic rock.
Exactly right. The different types of rock make a big difference. Yeah. But actually, just sort of coming away from the route and going back to the artwork that you've created, you're obviously I'm going to say a proper artist. You've exhibited at the Royal Academy and worked in all different areas. And that without question, that comes across when you look up in the shop at the artwork that's on display. You get drawn in. You absolutely do. Whether or not you know the route or the rock or anything, you just start looking at it and you get drawn in, and you see more and more and more and more things every time you look. So I think you've captured, certainly to my mind, and I'm no artist, but you've captured the majesty of the crag in your piece, and it is an iconic crag. And I love in your UKC article, and I'm going to pop a link to this in the show notes as well, The Lost Art of Crag Drawing, that you need to be a climber who's experienced the climbs and the essence of the place to invoke the inspiration in your artwork. And I love that line. I know you often work plein air, you work outside. Did you work outside when you were doing the drawings that you've used to create this artwork?
Partly, but it was drawn as illustrations purely for my thesis. So I sort of worked I went up and sort of filled in the bits which I couldn't quite get right from photographs, but it was largely drawn that way at that time. But as you say, I work plein air, as they say, which is outdoor, in front of the crags, because I was invited by the BMC to illustrate one of the Staffordshire guidebooks in '79, and I found that the only way I could do it was actually to go and sit in front of the crags, because photographs don't always give you a true view of the crag, and particularly much later on when I was doing a lot of the limestone drawings for the Peak series in the mid-80s. You just couldn't do them from photographs because a lot of the limestone crags in the valleys, as you can appreciate, in the summer, all the leaves are on the trees and you just couldn't see them. You couldn't even take a decent photograph. So the only way to do it was to go down in the winter when it was completely bare. And the other thing was you couldn't get photographs anyway, because with them being in narrow valleys, you couldn't get back far enough to get the topography of the crag. So I just decided to go and do it and sit in front of the crag. And it was the same when I did the Mid Wales guidebook with John Sumner with the CC. I had to go out to the crags, and there were no decent photographs anyway, and just explore and find these crags which were so high up and overgrown that was the only way to do it.
So yeah, bashing through the undergrowth then to find your location. And did you use a stool, a chair, or did you just sit on a rock? Or
just had a deck chair, like an aluminium deck chair, a drawing board, a whiteboard, ink, and dip pens. It was as simple as that. There was no nonsense. You just had to get on with it because obviously the days were short in the winter in the Dales. The light wasn't very good, and I had to be prepared in case it rained. I mean, my brother loaned me his giant fishing umbrella, which if it rained, you know. So it was just a case of, and the time was limited, so you just had to crack on with it. I mean, drawing it in pencil was an option, but the trouble with that is you draw it out in pencil, then you still got to go back to the studio and draw over the top of it. So I just thought I'd just get the ink, dip in the pens and do it. And in itself, it sort of created it was very much, there's no sort of hiding place with pen and ink. You've got to just, and if you make a mark, you make a mistake. So I just did them very spontaneously. And I think that spontaneity in itself drives you to look very much, you look even harder at what you're doing, and you have to distill it into simple lines. Because of course, when you draw, when it was printed, we couldn't print in colour then. It was all black and white. So it had to be printed in black and white. And the only way to do it in black and white was to do it in ink, which is very, very clear. So they had to be clear, precise drawings. And it just evolved that way.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah, that really is. I guess there's an element of modern day photography where you can zoom in on photographs, particularly like on smartphone. My phone takes just incredible photographs. It's a bit where you could zoom in on stuff to see some of the detail. But I'm getting the impression from what you're saying that there's a bit of your contact or your presence with the rock that comes into it as well. Maybe I don't know whether is that right?
I think when you're down in Cheadale or somewhere like that, or up in front of Cloggy, you know all the corners, the angles of the what's in the roots. You can see more clearly, and what is required in a guidebook drawing, which is basically an illustration which has got to function and show a climber where they've got to go. Yeah. It doesn't got to be a fancy impressionistic sort of with atmosphere. It's got to be clear. It's got to be clarity. Yeah. People have got to be able to read that and see where the route goes, because that's the idea of it. And it's got to drive you, and it's got to show the topography of the cliff. It's got to sort of pull you in really and make you want to do it.
Yeah.
And back to your days of the first guidebook that you bought, like you said, wasn't particularly it wasn't as detailed as the ones that you're illustrating now. Yeah.
Yes, the Ron James guys. I'll just pull that out. I think can you see that way? That picture.
Yeah.
Got a photograph, and they put black and white lines over it. And of course, in that photograph, there's lots of shadows, so you can't actually see. Yeah. If the route's going to go up the right wall, which didn't exist then as a climb, you need to see all that detail, that topography, so you can pick that. And that's what a drawing does. I think a drawing, you can distill it, you can take things out of it and put things in. Whereas with a photograph just glosses over something.
Yeah, that was a very dark image of, or it's reprinted as a very dark image of Cloggy. So it was very difficult to sort of see all of the intricacies of the route, because of course a climber is going to be looking at this from the base of the crag, looking up as well. But also, if you're like me, sort of on stance 2 or stance 3 on a multi-pitch, and it's like, oh, where did it say it went again? So maybe you're checking it under pressure as well. And or you're tucked into a belay niche and you got right, okay, yeah, I think I can see where that goes. So yeah, there's lots of different ways that you're needing to absorb that information.
Yeah, the guidebooks really at that time, the printed guidebooks were really they were a team effort, because they were all produced by an army of volunteers. Really, we all did it fairly voluntarily with the BMC. There was a whole mass of people, and a system that we devised for producing the guidebook. Artists work with the guidebook writers, and of course the editor would write an interesting historical introduction to the area and the crags. So the guidebooks themselves were really interesting things to have. I think today's topos and apps do the job, but they're very sort of sterile. I think they're quite sterile to some degree.
I would agree with that. I love having everything on my phone. It's dead handy because it does go in a pocket much easier than the guidebooks that just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And like your helmet got lighter, but your guidebook got heavier if you're carrying it with you. But we've got shelves of guidebooks here, at home, and every now and again, you take a stroll through, and I don't know what you've done with yours, Phil, but we've just noted who we did it with and when, and you in the winter you're looking back and you're transported back to that particular day that was either really good, or maybe that was the day your mate fell and broke their ankle. That was a bit of an eventful day, but there's stories within the books.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Most climbers write in the books the routes they tick off, or they put what they did, the date, and then it's probably been dropped down the cliff, and which you do, because we used to stuff them down the front of our pullovers, and then they drop down the cliff, and you go, oh no, and or if you drop in the sea, you'd recover it. So the guidebooks become quite dog-eared, and the sort of, when you pick them up a few weeks later, you'd think that would bring back that sort of day,
Yeah, and pre-crack gloves as well. Our gritstone guides, they're covering some little blood stains as well.
It's all there. It's all the history of the days there.
Yeah, there's literally skin in the books.
Yeah. I love that.
So we've sort of talked about and described the artwork, Phil, and it's truly unique. I mean, how difficult, after that initial idea of when James, put together those two images into a 90-degree angle, how difficult was it to then bring that into reality, to the artwork that we see today?
Well, briefly, the idea was there, the seed was sown. I thought about it, but then I thought, well, most of my work, my prints and my drawings are sort of displayed under glass. So I started thinking, well, I'm going to get a piece of glass to fit in a corner. So that was a non-starter. Then I thought about doing it with an acrylic. So I went up to a couple of companies in Manchester, and they can fold acrylic for you. But the problem with acrylic is, in the exact corner, it distorts the image. Plus, it was quite expensive to get a piece of acrylic made. You've got to invest in quite a run. So I threw that idea out, and then I come up with the idea. I discovered some special wax. American artist was using it, so I thought, well, perhaps I could use this wax on the print. So that then did away with glazing it or putting it under acrylic. So then I could explore the possibility of just making the corner frame. And I got in contact with a few professional picture framers, and they didn't really want to know, because they were sort of skilled in just making standard picture frames. And as soon as I started talking about an inner mitre where the corner would go, they just thought it was a mad, impossible idea. So I then thought, I did make my own picture frame. I thought, well, I sort of come up with the idea of doing it myself. So it was quite successful in the end. I did it myself, and we waxed the print, and it's all, I won't go into too much detail, but it fits into the corner, and the wax actually protects the print. And the other good thing about not using glass or acrylic is you can actually see more detail more clearly. So it does away with that problem as well. And it's not so fragile. You can probably transport it a bit easier as well.
I mean, definitely the detail.
Amazing.
As I was sort of saying earlier, you look and you just always see something different as you look in. But what a story, having like it's an artwork decades in the making from your original
Yeah,
dissertation artwork and all the way through now to this sort of celebration of the 50th of your 50th first ascent of the 50-year anniversary
that's it.
since your first ascent of Cenotaph Corner, and the artwork is there. It's up for sale. It's available for sale directly from you. And we've actually got the opportunity for one lucky person to win a copy of the Cenotaph Corner artwork. If you are joining in with our Joe Brown 60th anniversary Big Tick Summer Challenge, where you can go out, choose from 60 routes. Some are sport routes, some are boulder problems, some are trad routes. You can go out, climb a few, you can collect freebies along the way, and then you can enter our competition on UK Climbing. And there will be in September a dip and to pick out the one lucky winner who could actually own an original piece of Phil Gibson unique artwork for your wall. So get involved, get out climbing, enjoy yourself, have fun, and enjoy a summer of rock. It's going to be as gorgeous as it is today. All summer,
Take
lovely
your
and warm and dry.
sunscreen. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And details will be in the show notes and also on our shop blog, or you can pop into the Joe Brown shops in Llanberis or Capel Curig and chat with any of the staff, and they can give you all the details. But for now, Phil, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It's just been fascinating hearing your story and how climbing and art for you have just been completely interlinked and
Yeah.
ended up in this piece of artwork that we've got on display in our shops. We're very fortunate.
One thing before you go, I never managed to meet Joe back in those days, but I did manage to meet him. Nat Allen, who is our sort of patron of our sort of local Valkyrie Club informal group of climbers in Stoke. We had a guidebook launch up in Hatherseas at Outside in '92 for the On Peak Rock compendium of book. And Joe was invited along, and Nat was there along with a lot of other well-known climbers for the launch. And Nat was very kindly brought Joe over and introduced me to him, and he signed the book. He signed my copy, complimentary copy, and he complimented me on my drawings. That was the only time I met Joe, but I was very, very pleased to meet him.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a legend in his own time and remains so. And with routes like Cenotaph Corner as just one of his many, I think it was 500 or 600 first ascents that Joe did in the day
Wow.
with Nat Allen and Don Willans and a whole
Yeah.
host of climbers that just didn't really pay attention to the rules of the day and just went out and pushed boundaries.
Sounds like my brother.
Yes, yeah. Spirit is strong. Well, if you would like to see a copy of the artwork that we've spoken about, you can either nip into our Llanberis shop in on the main street in North Wales, or you can hop online to our blog where there is an image of the artwork as well as Phil's story and a history of Cenotaph Corner, and all of the links to that will be in the show notes. Or if you find yourself in need of purchasing some fantastic new sparkly climbing gear, we have one of the best walls of climbing gear that you will see in the UK and possibly Europe, and you can find those either at our Joe Brown shops in Llanberis and Capel Curig, or at our Ambleside shop, which is called the Climber Shop, or online at www.climbers-shop.com.